Ole Miss is just getting ready to take on the Tulane Green Wave. We will bring in Mike Huseman and talk all about that. We'll talk about Trinidad Chambliss' second start, and Arkansas looks really good against Memphis. Plus, your comments in the third segment. This is the Locked On Ole Miss podcast.
You are Locked On Ole Miss, your daily podcast on the Ole Miss Rebels. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to the Locked On Ole Miss podcast. I'm your host, Stephen Willis, a 10-year veteran member of the national media with Yahoo Sports and a former Ole Miss staff member as well. We bring in SEC After Dark co-host Mike Huseman to talk a little bit about the Green Wave and the Ole Miss Rebels. It should be pretty interesting how that goes for Ole Miss today and what is happening in college football right now. That is interesting, as well as we're going to take your comments in the third segment. But please, when you comment, please put where you're commenting from. We want to shout that out. Thanks for making Locked On Ole Miss your first listen. And please give us a like, subscribe, and comment on your way out. Check out a second listen on the network. Nearly every team, college and pro, is available. This episode is brought to you by Mazda. Like our players, we sweat every detail because when you make every move count, pulling off the unexpected is only the beginning. Stay tuned for later and for highlights in this week's Moving the Game Forward. Mazda, move and be moved. All right, so Mike, it's really interesting. Trinidad Chambliss had an unbelievable game. He was the Maxwell Player of the Week against Arkansas. They obviously found some things that you were able to take advantage with on the Arkansas defense. And this week, there's probably a little game film on him. Summerall was able to put a better game plan together, but I'm not sure that this is going to matter so much. I think this is a Kewan Lacey type game against the Tulane Green Wave. What say you?
I agree. I expect both teams in this game to emphasize running the ball. It's the way they're made up. You know, Tulane certainly is going to be a run-heavy team. The last 3 years, they've had a back that's gotten over 200 carries. And on Ole Miss's side, I think with Chambliss playing and looking at the way Tulane's D is made up, you're going to try to emphasize running the ball and getting control early. Because of the way Tulane plays ball under Summerall, you don't want them hanging around late in the game. You want to put them out early.
Yeah, and it's one of those things, if you can jump on them, it's almost like whenever you were in the 90s playing against a wishbone team or a triple option team, because they want to play slow. They want to run the football. They have a running quarterback. There's a lot of similarities.
Iowa State are the same way now. Yeah.
Yeah, and if Ole Miss is able to jump on them and speed them up, and it's kind of almost a battle of wills, in my opinion, between Lane Kiffin wanting to speed things up and John Summerall wanting to slow things down.
Agree. And it's odd because even though one wants to go fast, one wants to go slow, the way they play and construct their teams isn't that dissimilar. It's how they want to take advantage of the opponent and where they perceive those advantages to be.
Yeah, the important thing to me whenever I look at this game, you want Jake Retzlaff to beat you with his arm. You don't want him to run the ball. You want to stack the box and say throw the ball. If Shaz Preston has a big game for Tulane or any of the other wide receivers, so be it. If that happens and you get beat, it just wasn't meant to be. But if Retzlaff has a game similar to what Tulane Green was able to do against Ole Miss last week, I think that's a problem. And it's kind of, I don't want to say a correctable problem, but it's something that you should be able to control on your defensive front and front seven with the quarterback run game, as long as you play the game right.
And Jake Retzlaff last week against Duke, he threw for 245 yards, wasn't exceptional throwing the ball, completed most of his passes though. On the ground, he ran the ball for 111 yards and 4 touchdowns. You can't have that happen if you're Ole Miss today, nor do I think it will happen. Just the way Duke plays defense, you're taking extreme risks and allowing plays like that. But
yeah. Duke is a weird case study because Manny Diaz is basically playing like over if you want to talk about it, Duke's defense is like the guy from New Jersey that is always in the weight room, that is super big into creatine and pre-workout and all of that stuff, and they're going to be super over-aggressive. That is Duke's defense.
Yeah.
That's not what Pete Golding does, so I don't know if it will look exactly like that. Now, it is important to remember that Duke game, there was a little bit of a revenge factor for Tulane in that game. With Darian Mensah going to Duke. And against Northwestern's just trash.
They're bad this year.
They're really bad. They played on the road one time at South Alabama, and they were a 2-point conversion away from tying that game and going to overtime. So, honestly, when I look at what Tulane has done to this point, they are a good team, and they legitimately have a chance to be the G5 representative of the college football playoff. But when you look at this Tulane team, this is an untested Tulane at this point.
Yeah, I'm still not sure on any of the teams that played. Like Duke won't be as good as they were last year.
No, they got so raced at home by Illinois.
They did. And they're, like you said, they're taking so many risks. Like they were bound to have some regression. And South Alabama, they lost a lot, but they hung with Tulane. I think there's a lot of similarities with this game today in looking at last year's playoff G5. When Boise went to Oregon, it's not about does Tulane need to win? Can they keep it respectable and can they hang in at the whole game? Because the committee will look at that later on and say, it's not going to be, did they beat Ole Miss? If they stick with them, that's going to be good enough, provided they take care of business in the American Conference. And I think they
Yeah, you don't want to talk about the line necessarily, but if Tulane loses this game by 7, this is a win for Tulane.
Yeah,
that's what it is, and it's also setting up the biggest game of the season so far for Ole Miss. This is a classic trap game because you have that Arkansas just obscenity of a defensive football game last week, and then you have LSU coming next week and a really good Tulane coming in this week. I think it is legitimately a classic trap game. I think Ole Miss will avoid the trap because there's enough game film to avoid the trap. But this game should make, I guess, Ole Miss fans uneasy. Not necessarily worried, just uneasy.
Yeah, I think that's absolutely true. Like, we're talking about not just a run-of-the-mill G5 team. This is a legit top 25 football team in the country at the whole FBS level, who you have to give them the respect and game plan for them accordingly.
According to noted SEC lover and AP poll voter Nicole Auerbach, they're a ranked team, and Ole Miss is not. So Ole Miss should be the underdog in this game.
Fascinating.
Yeah, it's crazy how she just didn't even rank the number 13 team in the country.
They both should be ranked. I will say that. They both.
Yeah, they absolutely should. I mean,
yeah,
it's ridiculous. It's ridiculous that Tulane is not ranked and Notre Dame is ranked.
Yeah, my thing with that is, say you're in her situation where you don't rank them. I'm of the mind. Say you legitimately just forgot about them. Own up to that. Don't try to worm around it. No, I don't know that. No, hey, I forgot about them. I had an off day when I was putting my list together. It's okay to say that.
Yeah. But you can't say it doesn't matter, even though it doesn't matter, but you can't say it because when you say that, you just let everybody know that you're just going to use that as a vehicle for your biases and to kind of get your opinion across. And that isn't what this is for. This is going back pretty steeped in traditions, nearly 100 years in at this point. Yeah. So we'll see exactly what goes. When we come back, we will look around college football. Arkansas is looking pretty good. Clemson's getting blown out at home. Tennessee is handling business. We're going to talk with Mike Huseman about that and take your comments in the third segment. Be sure to put where you're commenting from, and we will talk about that right after this. This episode is brought to you by Mazda's Moving the Game Forward. For those who believe it's not just about playing the game, it's about redefining it. There are moments that do more than just put points on the board. They move crowds, move culture, and keep the game moving forward. Early in the game against Arkansas, the Hogs wanted to test the young Trinidad Chambliss, the D2 transfer, and sent the house after him to see if he was able to handle that level of pressure. He was able to quickly find a check down, hit Caden Lee for a 60-plus yard gain, set up a touchdown, and set up the Ole Miss moving forward. When you follow what moves you, the unexpected is only the beginning. Just like there's more to every highlight, there's more to every Mazda vehicle. Mazda, move and be moved. You know, the weather is cooling down, then the days are getting shorter, and that has me wanting to make my home feel even cozier. And when it comes to cozifying your space this fall, Wayfair is the place to go. Wayfair has everything you need to set the mood for the season, whether it's comfy recliners, warm bedding, autumn decor, and even an espresso machine so you can make your favorite latte at home. I recently picked up a recliner from Wayfair for my surgery recovery, and OMG, it has become indispensable. And it's completely transformed my space. Cozify your space with Wayfair's curated collection of easy, affordable fall updates. From comfy recliners to cozy bedding and autumn decor, you'll find it all for way less at wayfair.com. That's WAYFAIR.com. Wayfair, every style, every home. Do us a favor and like, subscribe, and comment on the video. Subscribe to the podcast on whatever audio podcatcher you're listening to and give it a 5-star review. It costs absolutely nothing, but it helps keeps all of this free. If you want more, join the Insiders program in the subtext link down below on our videos. No trolls, 14-day free trial, and the easiest way ever to cancel. So give that a try. And don't forget to check out a second listen on the network. Nearly every team, college or pro, is ready for you. All right, Mike. It is really interesting to see. Now, Memphis
just scored, by the way.
Yeah, they just scored a touchdown. They pushed off and scored, but he got it. But that cut it to 28-17. Now, Memphis gets the ball to start the second half, and there's still 31 seconds left to go. Arkansas could score in seconds. But Arkansas, they look pretty good. Clemson scored a touchdown to cut their deficit at home
10,
to 14.
Oh, was it 14? Okay.
Yeah, and I'm pretty interested in this iron skillet game between TCU and SMU because it's being discontinued. It's going to be a casualty of the SMU going to the ACC, I think. But looking at games around the country, it's kind of going the way we thought they would.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't expect Syracuse to have a double-digit point lead before halftime at Clemson, but we've talked about Clemson a lot. They're just uninspiring this year. I don't want to say that team has given up, but that was a team that expected to compete for a national title, and they're miles off of that right now. We could see a team that gives up the fight for the rest of the season pretty quick in there. And Syracuse, we all kind of underestimated them and all. They lost McCord and a team that won 10 games last year. Turns out that they've responded pretty well this year, and their new guys are playing well.
Yeah, and Arkansas offensively, listen, it was in this game, it was one bad pass where he decided to be Superman from being a complete blowout. Okay. Bobby Petrino has been just dealing.
It makes me wonder if he wants back. Does he want to be a head coach next year? Is a question I'm having now.
The conversation that I have had with my Arkansas people is that he just doesn't want to recruit. He doesn't want to deal with it. He just wants to coach ball, and he can't really, after the NFL and what he did with the Falcons, go back to the NFL. So he has to find a location that will let him just coach ball because he's really good at that, but he hates the recruiting aspect of the game.
And he's proven enough as a play caller. He will be able to be an assistant coach every day for the rest of his life if he wants to. Someone will have him on staff working with QBs, dialing up X's and O's.
Yeah. And they look so good. Like the first touchdown that they drew up was absolutely unbelievable. It was some of the best play design work that I have seen. I was pretty impressed with what could go on. And I don't know. With what is happening, if Trinidad Chambliss can have a game similar to the Arkansas game that he had against Arkansas.
Yeah.
If he can do that again, that sets up the biggest game of the season this year. And I think it's going to be interesting looking at what can happen for Ole Miss moving forward if Ole Miss can show up and win this game. It doesn't matter if you win this game by 1 point or cover the spread.
No.
Just win this game. No. Next week is the show me game.
Yeah. And if Ole Miss and LSU both go into next week undefeated, as we think they will, the winner of that game will really have to screw up to not make the playoffs. You build in a lot of leeway there where you can lose multiple games and still get in.
Yeah. And listen, that's just a huge game because I think there's a chance, I don't know if it's been announced yet, but I think there's a chance that you end up with game day on campus if Ole Miss wins, because that's a top 10 Ole Miss team at that point, because somebody ranked in the top 10 is going to lose, and Ole Miss is 11th in the coaches poll, and LSU, lots of people say the best team in the country or something like that. And I realize that Oregon and Penn State is happening that weekend, but I don't think ESPN wants to promote a big noon game if they can help it. In the LSU game, they're going to have the rights to it. It's going to be on ABC, and I don't think that ESPN wants to go to Alabama, Georgia again.
Yeah, I mean, that's a tough one. It's two big fan bases, but it's almost like I've been there, done that at this point, where I'd like to see something new. Heck, I would rather have them go to Auburn and A&M than go to Georgia, Bama again, just for the sake of seeing two teams that might be undefeated that we haven't seen before. But Ole Miss LSU, to me, is definitely the obvious choice if you're not going to go to Penn State and Oregon.
Yeah, and remember, on Wednesday, ESPN is putting out their Lane Kiffin documentary.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, on Wednesday, it's like the many lives of Lane Kiffin. They're going to air that E60 documentary. I've seen it. It's excellent. It is an amazing documentary. It's not necessarily about Ole Miss. There's only about 10 minutes of Ole Miss in that documentary, but man, they spend a lot of time on Al Davis and what happened at USC and the Tennessee thing and all of that. And with that happening and having the opportunity for an Ole Miss LSU game in the Grove, that feels like a no-brainer. I get that Penn State and Oregon, that's number 2 versus number 4. Yeah. But if you can get number 3 versus number 9 and number 3 versus number 10, I think you take that with the other stuff that is going on, if that makes sense.
And also, game day is going to be looking ahead. It's more like, based on the schedules they play, it's more likely you're going to get an undefeated Penn State or Oregon later on and can go to one of their games later, where that's less of a certainty with the gauntlet in the SEC.
Yes, and you have no idea. With the Ole Miss LSU, whoever wins that game, like you said, has a good view of the playoff, but LSU Bama's on the table. If they get the win, that's a big one. Ole Miss and Georgia is just a couple of weeks away. Yeah.
LSU A&M is in 3 weeks, and if A&M beats Auburn, that's when you might have undefeated LSU and A&M. Yeah.
There's a lot of stuff and a lot of ways that ESPN can do that. I think that Ole Miss and LSU, if Ole Miss wins today, is a home run for game day next week, in my opinion. They may decide to go to Oregon and Penn State just to go to Oregon and Penn State.
Yeah.
But if you want to look at the extra stuff that they can get from it, especially with Ole Miss and LSU being a top 10 matchup, it just kind of makes sense to me.
It does. And you brought up kind of that variable of, is big noon kickoff going to be Penn State? Game day probably doesn't go there if that's the case.
Yeah, it has to be. Number 2 and number 4 Big Ten game.
Unless the other one would be USC, who's ranked now at top 10 Illinois. They could go there.
Yeah. But likely they will not, because they have a chance to. Yeah. But then Oregon, does Penn State takes on Ohio State?
Yeah.
And they're going to be at Michigan, Ohio State. Oregon, which of the big boys in the Big Ten do they play?
Oregon later on. The next week, Oregon plays Indiana, who I don't think are going to be as good as last year. They're still all right. And then Oregon's last 2 games are probably their 2 toughest, USC and Washington. Both of those teams, I'm higher on Washington than most, but those teams are going to be contenders in the conference, I think.
All right, when we come back, we are going to take your questions. We're going to give you control of the show as we talk about the Ole Miss and Tulane game, getting ready to start in a little under 2 hours. Be sure to leave a comment on there and leave where you're commenting from, because we want to call you out for that as well. So stick around for that. This episode is brought to you by Square. Your favorite neighborhood spots run on Square. There are certain businesses that truly make a neighborhood feel like home, whether it's a local sports bar packed on game days, or the coffee shop that knows your order by heart, the corner deli that's been serving your community for decades. These are the places that bring people together. When the neighborhood businesses thrive, the whole neighborhood thrives. One of my personal favorites from when I lived in Oxford was Phillips Grocery. They just have that lodge feeling about them. Whenever you sit down in the burger, fantastic. These local spots are what makes a neighborhood feel like a home, and so many of them run on Square. Square is a proud partner of more than 4 million neighborhood businesses around the world. You can go to square.com/go/lockedoncollege to learn more. But before you do, go support some of your favorite local neighborhood spots. You'll be happy that you did. Square, see you in the neighborhood. It's almost the weekend. It is the weekend, actually. It's time to look back on last week one more time for the MVP on Who Delivered, powered by DoorDash. Just like you can win every Saturday on DoorDash Streaks, saving more money every time you order, these players delivered when it mattered most. Let's break it down. For Ole Miss, Trinidad Chambliss delivered in a big way. He was a weapon on the goal line as a runner and a passer in a route to 3 total touchdowns against the Arkansas Razorbacks. When the pressure was on, Trinidad came through. No hesitation, no delay. Just like he did at Ferris State when he was on the platform of the Harlan Hill Trophy. That's the D2 Heisman. Trinidad wants to go on a streak, and the Tulane Green Wave gives him the opportunity to do just that. And just like Trinidad Chambliss delivered for the Ole Miss Rebels, DoorDash delivers your Saturdays with DoorDash Streaks. You save every Saturday you order. Stack it up all season. You can save up to $250, including $100 in DoorDash credits. Order this Saturday. Keep the streak alive. Fuel your game day only with DoorDash. Terms apply. Promo period runs through November 18th. All right, Mike, let's take some comments in the chat as well. We got JC coming in here saying good afternoon. That's great. Chase Moss says, let's go, guys, hotty toddy. And he says, this is another big game that the defense needs to show something. I do think a Pete Golding defense is known for explosive plays. That's kind of what they do. It's not the Manny Diaz like super bro culture defense, but it's an explosive play defense. They play behind the line of scrimmage. They're really good at scheming up defensive ends to get to the quarterback. The secondary causes a little bit of a problem. That's the Nick Saban influence. Against Arkansas, that didn't really necessarily work out at all. They couldn't do necessarily anything. I think that Ole Miss needs to have explosive plays in this game.
And you were right, against Arkansas, it didn't work. But like we talked about Petrino, some days he's just going to be able to dial up success against anybody. There's not much he hasn't seen, and very few things he's not going to have an idea to game plan against. I think he has good players to fit what he wants to do, and Arkansas is not going to lose games by not scoring points. They're just going to allow too many in a lot of their losses.
Yeah, and that's pretty interesting. Chase says, stack the box and make the quarterback beat him with your arm, though. And that's the real thing. You have to take away the quarterback run. You probably need to spy him with Suntaran Perkins, which athletically, it's a little bit better matchup going up against Jake Retzlaff as opposed to a 6'3", 230-pound guy running around the backfield. I had flashbacks in that game to Matt Jones back at Arkansas. But, yeah, it was just one of those things with Bobby Petrino that they were able to work on it. Alan Sorensen says, I think our defense steps up. You know, Mike, on this one, I kind of agree with the poster, Alan, because how often do you see Pete Golding like lay 2 eggs in a row?
I mean, you'd know better than me. I'm not following Ole Miss nearly as close as you, but yeah.
Yeah, you don't see him do that. Like when Ole Miss took on LSU in 2023, and it was up and down the field and all of that, and Ole Miss won that game like 52-51 or something like that, or 52-47 something. The next week, the defense they won the game for Ole Miss. I think it was against Arkansas, honestly.
And if they're going to step up today, it's going to be, he mentioned before, takeaway QB run. You're going to have to stop the running backs running because Tulane wants to run the ball inside with their running backs. That's going to be step one in winning this game.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how they set it up. John Summerall is an elite coach. He's going to be coaching in the SEC or the Big Ten probably as soon as December, honestly.
Yeah. It would not surprise me if he doesn't coach them in a bowl game. If they make the playoffs, he'll stick with them. If they go to a bowl game, he probably doesn't coach the bowl game this year.
Okay. Bradley Voiles says, do you think our edge players play better this game? And do we see Andrew Jones play at linebacker this game? My source that follows practice and kind of gives me kind of the inside information that's going on from time to time mentioned that he was working with having the helmet communication thing in that got installed. And that's usually an indicator that they are thinking about using him some. And with TJ Daugherty playing every snap against Arkansas, you don't want to wear out TJ Daugherty. He's too good of a player. So you need to spell him at least 10 to 15 snaps over the course of a ball game. So there is a path, in my opinion, for Andrew Jones to get into the game.
Yeah. And I was kind of surprised at that. Like, we had talked about him in the offseason coming over from Grambling, and it's interesting to me that we haven't seen him on the field yet. We've seen some guys play a little, Tyler Banks, Raymond Collins. Like, I would have thought he would have been playing over these guys, but he hasn't to this point.
All right. Nick Hutchison says, I hate to even talk about it, but what do you know about AJ Maddox, just in case we might see him today, from Ellisville, Mississippi? AJ Maddox is just a young quarterback and he's learning. I do not think at this point they might say it differently and they won't admit this, but I do not think they trust him at this point. I do think Austin Simmons is the emergency break glass quarterback today. I don't think that they want to use Austin Simmons. And if there's something like Trinidad Chambliss's helmet came off, you might see AJ Maddox go in for a play and hand the ball off.
Okay.
But if Trinidad Chambliss actually went down, honestly, I think they would put in a hurt Austin Simmons over AJ Maddox. And it's not an AJ Maddox thing where they think poorly of him or anything like that. He's just a young quarterback. And everybody develops at their own speed, if that makes sense.
Has Maddox seen the field yet?
Not yet, I don't think.
Why I ask about, like, if you put him in for the handoff, like you had mentioned, you don't want him to get 4 games and burn his red shirt. That's why
Yeah. He's not going to do that. Although he got a red shirt last year. I don't think he has one.
Oh, okay. I was thinking he was true this year.
JC, thank you for the super chat very much. JC says, let's go Rebs. Love the show. Everyday listener. This is how I start my day. Hotty toddy, or HYDR from Savannah, Georgia. A little midnight in the garden of good and evil. Thank you very much for tuning in. And of course, I'm glad you're having a good time when we start the day that way. All right. Andrew Marriott says, let Perkins run free. I think Perkins needs to spy. I think he needs to basically be the Jake Retzlaff. And if it's long yardage, you definitely put out athletes on the outside and you contain in. You rush outside in on him. And if he gets out of there, he's got to go backwards to do it to give other people time. You can't let him come forward immediately.
Exactly. Because running free too much in this game, you're going to whiff on tackles in the run game. And you can't have that against this team.
Yeah. So let's see. Bradley Voiles says, will they have Perkins spying on the quarterback? Yes, I think they will. Honestly, he's too good of an athlete not to do it. I think Suntarine Perkins will spy some. I think that Pete Golding, though, wants to mix it up a little bit. It can't all just be Suntarine Perkins because he's too much of a weapon in the pass rush game. I think you might see some Princely and Monmielen doing it. remember, you're not dealing with a Tulane Green this week. You're dealing with a B- version of it. And it's not an insult to this quarterback. Athletically, Tulane Green's just a freak. So you have a little bit more margin for error this week as far as who can spy the quarterback. He was just on last week, man.
Yeah. And if you're mixing it up, you can even have that nickel guy do it sometimes, because Tulane's going to be a team we're going to see more condensed boxes. They're not going to spread the field or have as many receivers. Mix it up.
Yeah. And also, in my opinion, and this is down the road and all that, Jake Retzlaff and John Mateer, there's some similarities in the game.
It's fair.
So, I mean, you can kind of get an idea of what works on this quarterback with what is going to work potentially on the road at Oklahoma, because that has a chance to be a really, really important game as well. Anyway, what do you got going on, Mike?
Not much. Just going to be watching ball today. There's obviously a lot of games I'm excited to see. As I had mentioned last weekend, I'm a little nervous to watch the Gamecocks today, but Oklahoma-Auburn is definitely the game that I want to see in the afternoon slate. And then tonight, I probably won't be focused on one. I'll probably be switching through all of them and just trying to watch some teams that I haven't seen as much of.
Okay.
It's oddly enough, for how much we talk about Texas, I haven't watched them a ton since the Ohio State game. So I may try to tune into some of that later against Sam Houston.
Well, you didn't really necessarily miss anything.
That's fair. Yeah.
Anyway, thank you for stopping by, buddy, and we'll talk to you a little bit later on this week.
Perfect.
All right. Mike Huseman from After Dark Podcast and SEC After Dark, my co-host on there. Thank you for making Locked On Ole Miss your go-to source for Ole Miss sports. We pride ourselves on offering the most comprehensive perspectives, which is why we're the front door of Ole Miss. If you don't believe me, Google Ole Miss Podcast and see how much we come up. Don't forget to subscribe, like, and comment. It helps the show and it's absolutely free. Your support means the world to us. Also, in another big moment for Locked On, college football fans, Locked On and Fire TV are presenting College Football Kickoff, your ultimate college football weekly preview. Drake Toll of Locked On Big 12 leads the conversation. A long time, two-time AP Coach of the Year, Gary Patterson, and former college star Jesse Holley, and Locked On's local experts. A college football preview show only Locked On can do. Catch College Football Kickoff every Thursday throughout the season, only on Fire TV. Hotty toddy, everybody. I'll see you after the game for some instant reaction. So we'll talk to you later.